I've been designing shirts for well over 15 years for major brands, and I'm going to show you how to do this. Stick around. Alright designers, welcome to Gear Garage. I'm going to show you how to get this ultra clean design that you can apply to any automotive image. And this is great for silk screening because it's all vector lines. It prints out very nicely because you don't have that bitmap little dot pattern. It's going to be ultra smooth, and you can use it for t-shirts, posters, anything you can think of. You need a bit of Photoshop skills and quite a bit of Illustrator skills. What we're going for is obviously that sort of illustrated painted look, and these days, I mean, with depending on what you're working on, it makes sense just to take the actual image of the car and work from that, hence photoshopping. But there has been a lot of illustration done over top of this to give it that sort of illustrated quality. So here's the original car, and this is a beautiful, awesome hot rod, so cool. So I had to do that one, but I'm just gonna pause this for a second so you can see it. It's all gritty sort of throughout this whole thing, and it's just a low resolution image, which is never something you want when you're making a shirt, especially since the silk screening really looks incredible when you have these really nice perfect lines, which is why vector artwork is so nice, because everything's precise even when you have gradients. And I'll show you a bit of that when the gradients are just like perfect. It makes for a really nice ink to go down on the actual fabric. Here we go. This is a bit like watching grass grow, but I'm doing the close crop around everything and just getting a nice sharp line. That's what I want to do. And also when I end up going over to Photoshop, I'm going to take that exact same line, copy and paste it onto Photoshop so I can cut it out so that they both match. So the Illustrator file I want to match exactly on top of the other one, so I can superimpose it on top of it. And that helps me with, you know, if I want to steal an element or two or whatever off the Photoshop file, or I'm basically blending the two, so the lines that I'm drawing need to match perfectly on top of the other one, and that's my process for that. Here we have me bringing just that outer like silhouette, let's call it, just the actual outline over, and just dragging it over to the right there, so that everything that I actually trace on this car, I can actually drag it over to the right, and then I can actually see the car, so I can see what looks right or not. And you'll notice also I'll actually duplicate that car the other side, so I have one image in the middle, one to the right where I'm basically tracing and dragging and dropping it over to see if it looks right, and then the other one on the left just if I want to live trace it as well, which I'll get to later on. Alright, here we have some bits where you can just see me just tracing different areas of the car. You're going to have a bunch of panels on the car because it is metal and they are flat, so if you were to break this down into gradients, which anybody who knows Illustrator, it's easiest to do them there, but you can sort of get an idea of the fact that I'm actually just tracing different areas of the body and putting those gradients on it, so therefore you get this clean sort of hybrid look to it. You can see, I think here I'm just lining that out, but then I actually take that panel on top of there, and you can see there's a bit of a gradient on there. I'm going to try and isolate every piece of that and draw as much as I can in Illustrator. It's tedious, but that's how you get there with that nice clean look. So here I am drawing that top piece. I'm going to apply a gradient. It's already got a gradient on it in Illustrator, but it's going to give you that same look, but obviously it's not all pixelated, and that's a good opportunity too to see when you look up close to those images how chunky they are. We call it chunky. It's just when it's really pixelated and it's really sort of, you know, if you zoom way up on these images, you see that the pixels will actually make up obviously a bunch of the colors, but that's horrible for printing, and the end result doesn't come out very nice. So, and there I am projecting it. I'm just copying and pasting over to the right just to see where I'm at, and that's very basic right now, but you're starting to see the actual car sort of come together a little bit. So I'll group everything as well. So I'm going to group everything that I actually trace so that it's locked together. So I'm literally just clicking it over, and then everything sticks together and you don't have to worry. I try and outline as many things as I can at one time, and you can do it in layers as well, you know. If you want to put black lines over top, or you know, your highlights on top, or whichever makes most sense to you. But after you're done watching this, it might be a little bit more clear about how to go about that. There's a ton of video work of me just going over top of this. It takes forever. So here you go. Speed it up. You can see everything. This is it. Was it 20 times speed? I wish I could work this fast. But you can see me just isolating everything, the back there, the back of the trunk. Then all the line work is really important too. If you see any highlights and lines that you can capture, that's what's going to make the illustration like very similar to if you were actually sitting in front of a truck with a piece of paper in front of you. You're going to try and get those major lines. So that's something to keep in mind, and I'll give you tips about that a little bit later as well, just to capture the same look. Here we go, just more line work, everything I can capture, the edges as well, even if there's nothing there, like on the edges of the panels, it just makes sense to line that out a bit. Okay, so right here you can see, this is black and white. Now, I've taken this image, this is similar to live tracing the image, if anybody has experience with that in Illustrator. If you live trace it, it's going to go black and white, or that's one of the options. Or in Photoshop, you can literally just take the levels and make it black and white, just crank the levels, or even just convert it to black and white. But it's going to give you a really good idea of what you should be capturing. Like if you were to break this image down to just straight black and white, this makes it a little easier to see. I can see all the highlights here on the rims. I can see all the highlights on the engine and just the top and the back and everything. So that's just going to right off the bat give me an idea of, okay, I need to capture all these lines here, even if you do a really minimal job. And maybe that's what you're after. Maybe you're after doing vector art that's just more minimal. Maybe you're doing a logo, something like that. At this point, I'm going to select everything here and just see where I'm at. So you can see I've got a bunch of gradients done. I've got a bunch of the line work, and let's just see what that looks like on top of the black. So you can see it's starting to come together quite a bit better. There we go. Here we go. More speed designing. All those little, you got a few of the little highlights in there. I try to sort of work a little further too in little corners. I've always done this even when I was drawing when I was younger, just because if you get, something looking really real, I used to always focus on the eyes when I was illustrating, like actually drawing with a pencil, because it would just give you an idea of where everything else needs to be. So you'll notice I'll do a bit of that on some of these elements just to get a firmer idea of where the design's going. Alright, here's a great example here. I've just put the highlight here on the windshield and just grabbing each and every one of those elements. It's tedious. It is tedious. You got to do everything, and it can be really tough, especially with the engine bay. And I'll show you how to get to that later, because the engine, there's just too many parts that are really hard to make vector and make look right. I mean, you can use gradient meshes and stuff like that, but since we're just going for that illustrated look, that's not really necessary. We're just trying to blot out the big chunks of the paneling of the Model T. Here's where we're taking on the grill, which is painfully hard. I mean, this is a great example of why, I wouldn't really go at this with an iPad, because there's all those little things that are just so much easier to get super precise with, vector art in Illustrator. So you can see here I'm sort of tweaking it, getting it to match, and then I'll actually duplicate that line a bunch of times because the thickness is there. It's close to the other one, but as it slowly fans out towards you, every one of those lines is slightly different. So another tedious thing, but once you get a hang for it, and like I said, the bulk is there, so it's just tweaking it. If you do the first one right, it's not too bad to tweak every one to get the grill to actually look right. Just remembering here that as I'm doing this grill, I actually made these into strokes, which makes it a lot easier for something like this rather than actually outlining the whole thing, which I do also do sometimes. But the reason I'm using a stroke is it's easy, a lot faster to adjust each one to be in the right space. And then if you want to outline the strokes in Illustrator, you can do so, and then you can actually fatten up the bottom if, let's say, you've got a taper or something like that on it. Here we go. You can really get a look at those strokes right here, and just putting them all in the right place before we actually outline them all. Here's some little notch thingies that just make it a little more lifelike, but looks like I'm pulling it off another grill from another car I did. You can't do that. That's cheating. I'm cheating. It's just little bits of, I mean, vector art, right? You can just grab it from your old stuff and just slap it on there. So, all right, here we've come to the rims, which are notoriously difficult to draw. So if you're actually hand drawing, you could maybe pull some of this off, but it is very difficult because you'll see here shortly that there's a variety of different circles. You can see I've started with a circle, and it like just the edge of the rim, the inner rim, then the disc. They all have to relate to each other perfectly, as well as actual rims, mags or whatever you want to call it on the inside as well. It's painful. You can't, on top of that, you can't duplicate that and put it on the back one because just the angle of viewing that actual rim is difficult. Okay, so you can see the spokes. Let's call them spokes. You can see those are all outlined right now, and I have a small stroke on there. You can see that, and now I'm just trying to capture the different, like the inner lip of the rim, and That's one of those things that, I mean, even if you Photoshop it, it's just impossible to get that whole rim to be nice and have that illustrated look. Even with Photoshopping, it's very difficult. Even with AI, I've used AI before to try and, delete and trace, like draw in rims. Even it gets it a lot wrong. So, and that brings me to another point, which is, I mean, I'm not one of those people that think that, AI won't be able to do this stuff. It can do amazing things, and it will be able to do more, but at this time you can't use AI to do this thing, or somebody out there wants to show me, I'm open to checking it out, but I know from the softwares I've tried, they look weird. They're just not quite right, and that's part of the problem. When you're dealing with a face, you can use AI absolutely to actually draw your face, and those little imperfections you don't notice so much, if the nose is a little bigger, whatever. But when you're dealing with something like this that's precise, it really stands out as it being off. Here we have the highlighted areas of the rims being outlined. This goes back to what I was saying before about changing it to black and white. When you don't do this a lot, it makes it stand out that, I have to capture all these little highlights, because on black, if you're designing on a black t-shirt especially, that's really the difference between your car that is on a black background, and the foreground is all the light that's bouncing off of it. So it's really key to get all these nice highlights done just perfectly on those rims. So you're going to have a multitude of layers, and if you want to, you can put all your highlights on one layer, group them together. Makes it a lot easier assembling it later. So you can see I'm just going around capturing every little thing there. And the beauty of vector stuff, as you can see, I mean, if you know all your key commands as well when you're actually doing this stuff, which I highly suggest you actually learn them in Illustrator, because it makes this a lot easier. But you can go and just get these perfectly sharp lines, and they're gorgeous when you zoom in on them. Everything is absolutely perfect, and obviously you can scale that as big as you want it after with any vector art. That's the nature of the beast. Here we go. You can start to get an idea of the whole thing coming together. The center cap thing here as well. I would have started with strokes, just two circles, and then actually alter them. Okay, so there's the full rim. You can see I've grouped it all together. There's a couple circles in the background there to look like the rotor. And I've went ahead and done the other one as well. Just get it in the right place, and then I usually group those together. Everything you can group together, that, especially if it's layered, if you know that's going to be on the top layer. And there you can see I've put the actual vector art on top of the other one. So now we're back in Photoshop, and I'm putting this on top of it, the actual image, just to get an idea of where things are going. It's far from being done, obviously, but usually you can see here, I usually leave the road and the drop shadow. You can paint in your own drop shadow. Don't use a layer drop shadow. That does not look right, but at this point you're basically illustrating in Photoshop. But I'm going to keep the road on this one, and usually what I do is just keep the road and crank up the levels so that you still get that nice, like right underneath the actual car, you get it very dark, and then you just sort of get this very deep colored asphalt underneath that. So you can see I'm doing that and just getting an idea of where I'm going with it too. There you go. Darken it up. Here you can see I'm putting some blue in the background. Same thing, you're gonna have a bit of that night glow to it. Whether that's blue or not, don't worry about that for now. And the other thing is the actual color of the car. Don't worry about that either, because I'll show you a way to alter that. Once you have sort of the amount of light you want on it, you can quickly color that. So, and the background as well, I do a lot of hue and saturation. I get as much of sort of that ambient light, and then it's easy to dial in after it's already there. Okay, at this point you can see me sort of clicking through some of the layers here and just everything we have in Photoshop. So you can see it obviously coming together. That's the original, and there's a lot going on in the engine bay we'll get to. But when you turn that off, you can start to see where some of the layers are going and what it looks like. So here at this point I'm tackling the engine, just getting a good idea of that. Again, it could just be for now just to get an idea of what it's going to look like, but here's where the actual vector artwork that I'm doing, like illustrating over top of the actual image, differentiates from what I'm doing now, which is actually just close cropping that engine, because there's so many little ridges and everything. This would be next to impossible to actually make vector art for. So what we're going to do is the next best thing, and what we're going for again is that illustrated look. So what I can do is close crop everything here and isolate it, and then you can actually dial it in, which we'll get to here shortly. But right now it's just isolating it out. Here we go, we make a path and click on that path. That's going to select the whole isolated area. We're going to copy it, paste it. You can see right there, that's the bitmap image on basically the vector, the rest of the vector stuff. But so we're going to try and I might tweak the colors right here and just show you how that's going to potentially fit in there. Where is it? Smart blur. And look at what this does to the whole thing. So you can see it's very chunky, what I call it. And you can see right there in the little preview that it actually looks nice and smooth. That's better. It's not great, but it's a lot closer to an Illustrator where you wouldn't have all these little pixels everywhere. So, but here you can see it's very chunky as well. So a lot of those smooth curves are not perfect. So what I'm going to do is go back in there and actually take the blur tool, which is my other favorite tool that I use all the time. So Smart Blur does a really great job. Whoa, that's way too big. Smart Blur does a really great job of actually taking care of a lot of that, but you can see all the lines that are otherwise nice and perfect on the rest of the card just don't look that way here. So I'm going to go through and literally just turn down the smudge tool and just smudge them out. Okay, so more blurring of that engine. I'm going to be on that for a while, just trying to make it look like the rest of the car. And I'm just going to fast forward it through here, but you can see it just go over literally everything. All those lines that they really become obvious when you have super precise vector art everywhere else, and then you look at the engine, it has that quality to it. So I'm going to smooth everything out. You can see it's looking pretty good there. And then likely just go into levels as well and just crank up the levels so that it has the same deep blacks as the rest of it. So another thing I use all the time, levels, the greatest. And you can see there it's already starting to fit a lot better and have that quality to it. So see, everything's looking pretty smooth at this point. So pretty happy with that. There's a lot of dialing in that needs to happen, and I'll show you how to do that with Photoshop. Here we are outlining the actual tires. Tires are horrible to do like in Illustrator. There's so many just different variations in color, and I mean, it's pretty difficult. So, but again, we don't have to. What's the point of killing ourselves if we don't have to? What I'm going to do here is isolate these and do the same technique as I've done on the other places. So going around, just grabbing the tires and isolating them in Photoshop so that I can alter them and tweak them separately. So every layer is going to be different. So you can, once you get to the end of this, you can actually pick up everything and say those tires are too low, that windshield needs to be brought up, these colors need to be brought out, and you'll have a lot more control of it. So what I'm doing here is just literally close cropping all the tires. Then I'm going to smart blur them and go over them with that same smear technique to actually get them nice and smooth to the point where they actually suit the rest of the illustration looking art. So So here we have it. We have the front and back done. Let's just move this along a little bit further. You can see I've got everything. There we go. So they're too bright right now, obviously, and the other thing is every image you'll have has color in it. So usually what I do is actually take the saturation down or convert it to black and white. So you can see me sliding down the saturation there so that it doesn't look, it'll be a different hue and it'll look kind of odd. And you can see also it sort of disguises it once I put underneath the vector drawn rims. So it sort of disappears there a little bit. But we've got a lot of different stuff to do here. So motion blur, you can see that takes out a lot of that chunkiness, that pixelation. Just gonna let it roll here and so you guys can see it. There we go, much better. Now levels, again my favorite. And just making those really rich and black suits the rest of the car so it feels like it belongs. But I know right now when I zoom into those, it may still not be great. Whoa, may still not be great. So you're going to want to zoom in and actually take care of all those chunky ridges, which you can see me doing right here. Okay, back to my vector art. What I often do, and you can see me doing it here, is take just a screenshot of the Photoshop file and place it into Illustrator. The reason I do that, you don't want to place the Photoshop file in there, it's going to be huge. But what I'm trying to do right now is, again, skip ahead a little bit and actually figure out what the final design is going to look like. So I'm going to put some actual copy in the top here and just figure out, get an idea again of where I'm going, like if I start putting this on here, I might say, oh, whatever, I wish that car was red or like a deep cherry or something like that, and it might alter the path that I'm going on. So I've got some really nice custom fonts here that just have that old school, I think this one's called, what is it, Machinery? And I think it's a free font out there somewhere. Let's just move this forward a bit. I'm going to be playing around with this for a bit. Trying to figure out my color scheme. Here's something here I should show you real quick. There's a bit of the highlights, and you can see that in the end, those bright blues, and they go against that sort of beige color, which I love to do a lot of in my art because it just sets it off. Obviously they're close to being opposite on the color palette, so it pops really nice. And here I've typed out the words custom, which I liked, but since it says chop it on this shirt, what I really would like to do is make the actual font look chunky and chopped, like it was cut out of sheet metal or something like that, or maybe cut out of wood, I guess it looks like right now. But as you can see I make some changes to it throughout. But so you can see here, it's just got that cool chunky sort of look to it. I wanted something else that's basically custom font, so it just goes with the theme of the t-shirt. Alright, so more playing around, just figuring out the C. It looks a little better like that. I got some lines on the top and bottom that have that sort of chunky cutout look to it, and I knew I wanted to put chop it up on the top, so obviously this car has been chopped. That's when they take the ceiling down on it. And that whole composition too it's just so much easier in Illustrator. I don't know why guys try and do this in Photoshop. You can, but why not just get everything laid out the way that you like it in Illustrator and then just bring it over to Photoshop if you want to add effects to it. And that's what I always do. I would suggest you do that with anything like this where you have a car or one specific item and you're sort of doing typesetting around it. So there you go. You can see I'm pretty comfortable with that. Tons of fonts everywhere. Me trying to figure it out. Alright, so at this point I'm putting the vector art into Photoshop, which I'm going to want to do that to make it sort of all go together. And here you can see I've actually put some color right over top. So if you look at that that goes back to what I was saying before, where if you want to color the thing, you can do it later. So I put that on a multiplier, possibly color, and it just adds just a tinge to it, which helps it not be that dry black and white. If you want to go for black and white and that's your thing, then absolutely do it, but that just gives it that nice color to it. And you can see I'm actually putting a layer mask on there, so I just have a bit of blue here, a bit of that blue there, and I call that like ambient light. So since it's blue around the car, obviously the shiny paint's going to pick up a bunch of that. Here you can see me messing around with the little shine on the windshield. It's funny how something as simple as that makes a big deal. Here we have, I had found some funky sort of line work. I think it was stock imagery, but I thought it just looked cool, and I wanted to find a way to just sort of work with it. It had that sort of choppy line look to it as well. Okay, so what I did here, and I'll stop it for a second. What I do often is I'll actually select, you can go to the top and go like select that same black outline that we started with in the very beginning, and I'll actually alter it so that the selection is a little bit high, like wider, and it'll basically just put it off the original selection by a few pixels. And this is key because you can actually go in there and actually just paint a little nice line. It allows you just to, without having to go in and do it precisely, you can actually just go over the whole thing and get that nice blue sort of key line around it, which is really important because we're going to be having the letters on the background and they're going to have a bit of a blue glow to them. So that's going to hit the car and it's just going to make the whole thing pop off again. It'll give it that nice color to it. So I'm just going to hit play here just so you can see what I'm doing. And again, I'll go in with a layer mask because I hate having to do it twice. Here I'm going in, I think here's where I'm actually picking some more blue stuff that I want to actually be blue in the actual engine bay. So same thing where there's ambient light that's really bright blue, and I'm going to want that to sort of bounce off the whole thing. Here we go, just more bits of blue everywhere. I want this thing to pop as good as it can, so you can see, especially in areas where there's black on black, like you see that tire on the back there just goes straight into the black of the car, and you just can't really see the sides of it. So just sort of outlining things as you see fit so that instantly it's recognizable. When you sort of stand back from the car, you can see every element easily. You can see I'm going into the rims there, little bits of blue in the light, on the light. Okay, here we got a texture, and you can see I liked what was going on with the title here, but it just looked too perfect. It needed some grittiness, so I found some like nice pitted metal texture, and I just want to add that. So I think what I'm doing here, I'm just making a nice big sheet of that, and then you can just go to multiply. Obviously that's far too dark on top of that. I've used another layer mask, so it just is on the custom part. And then you're just gonna take that, and again with the levels, just crank them up. All right, so at one point you can see I put the sparks sort of coming out of the side, which looks like somebody's welding back there, which I thought looked cool at the time. I think I might have taken it out because you can't see the guy or you can't see what they're doing there. But you can, like, just the colors, again, they're just playing off each other, so you have that really rich blue and then the red on the other side of it. So, and a bit of that line work, that choppy line work in the back too, just experimenting with how to make that sort of work in a subtle way. You can see we have a real nice gritty looking custom right now. It looks like an old chunk of sheet metal that's just pitted and old. So here you can see I've added a little bit, same thing where you sort of option click the custom layer, and it'll give you a selection around the outside of the actual words custom, and then you can just add a bit of blue on the bottom. You can see since I put shop there in such a bright blue, it almost looks like it's a light. So I sort of played off that and made it sort of bounce off the custom part and off the bits of the car there that you can see on the edges. Alright, so at this point it's getting pretty dangerously close to the end of the design. You can see at this point I just go around and just bring out again the parts that needed to be lighter. Since everything's isolated, that's key for anything. And I had a photography friend once who told me that you had to isolate every part of the car or whatever scene you're dealing with. So if you have, a person in the foreground and a light and the background, if you isolate everything, it makes it a lot easier to really dial that in. So that's definitely served me well over the years. If you can literally just grab everything, the tires are separate, the rims are separate. So you're going to just want to go in, and whether you actually use levels to adjust that to make it look right, or if you go in again with that burn tool and the lighten tool, that's really helped me over the years. Know that if there is color in there and you use the levels, it's going to adjust the color also. But since we have the color of the car on a separate layer, that means we can make it brighter without actually altering the color, which is another key to just having everything isolated. So again, I always turn off every layer and just figure out how it looks individually, taking out certain layers. Reminds me of a song with Prince where he recorded the whole thing. He does every part of his song, so he recorded the whole song and then he took out bit by bit every piece of it, apparently, and it just left it with just very simple parts. And sometimes that's all you need, right? It's less is more. You add a bunch of junk to your design and later on you realize, that's too much. It's just, the focal point of this t-shirt is that killer car. So, you can add some words around it, but you don't want to go way over the top. Sometimes it takes away from the art that you want to bring out, or vice versa. Maybe you want your lettering to be the star of your design. All right, guys, there's one last look at it, and that's it. And the original again. So there it is. I'm just putting my logo on the bottom, and that's your final design. So alright everyone, that's it. So there's your t-shirt. If you found any part of this useful, please like and subscribe below, and if I get enough likes, I'll keep uploading them. I got tons of art, tons and tons of art, but this shows you all the key features anyways and techniques you can use to convert an image that maybe isn't so desirable into something you can use that looks like an illustration for a t-shirt. Thanks so much. We'll see you next time. Cheers.